Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2. Check. 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 You want to turn up red, please? Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. A little more. Check. 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 That's good. Oh, we don't do that anymore. Nope. It's all good. Check 1 2 1 2. Turn up green, please. Check. Check. Oh, a little less. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
And now someone's talking French there, and they're talking English here. So therefore, we pick up the English for our audio. Okay? And then when someone starts to talk French, when someone starts to talk English there, back and forth like changes their language here, okay? Then when they get tired, this person takes over. But one person does the English and the French all the time. Sometimes they get confused, okay? And so they're talking English when someone's talking French, and they're talking English when someone's talking English. They're the opposite way, okay? We have to run down here because they continue to do that. And so as soon as if they do that, I'm going to send you down here. You have to come down here relatively quickly. And as soon as you open the door, they're going to know, because it's usually us that bothers them, okay? They're going to know that something's wrong, and they'll look down and
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin the council meeting in just a moment. If you could take your seats, please. On va commencer la réunion dans...
We'll be starting in 1 minute.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. On va
Good morning, everyone.
commencer le 25 juin.
We'll be starting the meeting of Wednesday, June 25th.
2014. Those who are able to, would they please rise for prayer and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem. Almighty God, let us work together to serve all our people. Dieu Tout-Puissant, aidez-nous à travailler ensemble afin de bien servir nos citoyens. It's a pleasure to ask Councillor Thompson to introduce our special guest who is going to sing our national anthem. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I want to begin by thanking my colleague, Councillor Moffat, because Osgood Ward was not in the rotation for having a singer for the national anthem before the end of this term, and I guess I whined a little bit, and he gracefully gave up his spot so that I could have someone from Osgood Ward sing the national anthem. And it's a tremendous honor for me today to welcome one of Osgood Ward's finest musicians, Cheryl Cooper. I've known, I guess, Cheryl all your life, right from the smallest, and she's been an active member of our community by supporting a wide variety of fundraisers, church events, and local sports teams. She was even a trainer for our Metcalfe Junior B hockey team for a few years. And also, she is a very accomplished singer, obviously, but she has had 4 generations performing all at the same time. Her grandmother, her parents, herself, and her daughter Kate were able to sing at one event or a number of events. So that was a very inspiring event. As well, Cheryl has been an active member of the music community for most of her life. A natural alto, she began her solo career at the age of 5 while sitting on the top of the church piano at the Metcalfe United Church. Cheryl went on to participate in choir, school chorus, and as soloist at various youth talent contests. In 1987, she finished as a runner-up to Alanis Morissette in the CJOH Youth Talent Show. Cheryl was thrilled to participate as a youth member of the RCMP Sounds and Saddles. Growing up in a very musical family, Cheryl was exposed to many forms of music, including country, gospel, traditional Celtic. At the age of 8, she taught herself to play the guitar. Not classically trained, she relies on her ear and basic knowledge of music theory. Her professional talents have been recognized by being asked to accompany some of the best fiddlers in North America. This singer-songwriter has performed and emceed countless shows in the Ottawa Valley. Cheryl is a physiotherapist by trade. She owns and operates her own physiotherapy clinic in the village of Osgood, and this fall you're opening another one in Greeley. So it is with a great deal of pleasure, Mr. Mayor, that I introduce Cheryl Cooper to sing our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras s'est porté les pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est
thank you very, very much, Cheryl. And those flowers, we thought Doug brought those flowers for Councillor Deans, but well, ladies and gentlemen, at this time in the agenda, it's our opportunity to recognize city builder in our community, and I'd ask Ms. Laura Dubois to come forward to the podium, and her city councillor, Alan Hubley. Je mettrai aussi son conseil, Alan.
And her councillor, Alan Hubley.
Laura and Alan, if you could come forward, welcome, bienvenue. Laura Dubois became proprietor of Laura's Your Independent Grocer in 2007. Since then, she has gone above and beyond as an industry leader and communitarian in Canada and across the city. We often enjoy food served at community events, but the hard work, long hours, and dedication of those who provide this service are seldom recognized. Laura's leadership and commitment to supporting the community around her ensure that local groups are able to benefit and to grow. Le leadership et l'engagement de Laura envers sa...
We often enjoy food served at the community. Laura's leadership and commitment to supporting the community around her ensure that local groups are able to benefit.
As a community representative on the John Young School Council, where she established the school breakfast program made possible by donations from Laura's Independent Grocer. She's also a tremendous supporter of the Canada Food Cupboard. Laura frequently serves and provides supplies for the Canada Food Cupboard's Fresh Initiative, which provides fresh food to those in need in lieu of gift cards to promote healthy eating habits and those who use the service. Laura est une bénévole active pour la Fresh Initiative.
Laura frequently serves and provides supplies for the Canada Food Cupboard's Fresh Initiative, which provides fresh food to those in need.
Bus with food at their annual food drive, supporting the Scott Tokasi Memorial Baseball Tournament, or simply replenishing burgers for community barbecue. Laura and her team work tirelessly to foster healthy and happy neighborhoods and schoolyards. Laura, on behalf of your councillor, Alan Hubley, who I know is very proud of all you do in the Canada community, thank you for your leadership in making Canada the special place it is. And on behalf of my colleagues, it's my pleasure to present you with this meeting's Mayor's City Builder Award. Keep up the great work. Congratulations. Going over here, we'll just get a picture.
Thank you very much. I don't know how to follow that up. As a little kid, I never expected to be able to make such a difference in the lives around me. I worked in the corporate world for a very long time and never really understood the value or meaning of serving the community. My family, my store, and South Canada have been amazing to me to allow me and our team at Laura's Independent to help where we can, be there when needed, and just try to make a difference. Thank you so much for this award.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Laura's husband and family and friends and colleagues are with her here today, and we welcome them and thank them for being here. We have a surprise announcement that I'm honored to present, and he might be surprised by this. I'm going to ask Corey O'Kelly, who is in the audience, if he could come forward. This is normally Corey's on the other side of the camera, but this is a special meeting for us and for Corey. This is Corey's last meeting covering City Hall as a reporter, as Corey is going to be retiring from the CBC after 30 years of commitment to broadcast journalism, both in our city and outside our city. And Corey, we have a special proclamation that we'd like to present to you. Your colleague Steve Fisher helped get you here perhaps under false premises, so we apologize for that. But it's my pleasure if I could ask Allison to come forward. We'd like to proclaim today Corey O'Kelly Day in the city of Ottawa. It's not every day you're going to stand an ovation from council. Let me just read this out, Corey. Whereas Corey O'Kelly has been a fixture on our television since they were black and white. Whereas Corey O'Kelly has covered City Hall through the highs and lows of 7 different mayors. Whereas Corey O'Kelly's jeans, sport coat, and untied tie will now be hung up in the Media Hall of Fame as Corey enjoys his well-deserved retirement. And whereas the ponds and forests of Canada's golf courses are about to see a lot more errant tee shots, and whereas the dedication, humor, and love for Ottawa that was always visible in Corey's reporting and storytelling will be missed around City Hall, therefore I, Jim Watson, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, do hereby proclaim June 25th, 2014 as Corey O'Kelly Day. Thank you, Corey, for a wonderful career, for your fairness, your objectivity. You'll be missed. Congratulations. Get a picture. Yes, absolutely.
This is a great surprise. CBC asked me to come to Ottawa many times to work, and I always said no. And they said, what would it take to get you down here? And I said, well, I love covering City Hall. So they said, next time that job came open, it was yours. And I came down here, and I think my first day, I walked into City Hall in Sussex, and there was a bunch of ladies, staffers from the councillors and mayor's office, and one of them said, who's that guy? And the other one said, oh, it's just the new TV reporter from CBC. And the other lady said, that's the guy for me. It's my wife. We met at City Hall. My wife, Andrea. So a short time later, we got married and had 3 kids out of that meeting. And it's why I've always loved this place. It's kind of my nest. It's been the nest to me. And I think a lot of my colleagues up there behind the glass would agree. We hold this place in great esteem. We try to protect it. And oftentimes we go to head to head with one another. And I guess that's probably why that's bulletproof glass up there. So I tell you that little story because otherwise none of you would know how special this moment is for me. Thank you, my city.
I didn't know that about your wife. That's great. Well, thank you very much, Corey. I didn't know that story about meeting your wife here at City Hall, and as I think you saw from the reaction from all of my colleagues on council, it was a real pleasure to work with you. Often we're at odds on different issues, and you're chasing us down hallways, but certainly I think every member of council, I can speak on their behalf, always found you to be fair. There are some interesting stories that I think they're putting a bit of a reel together for you, including one day that you covered a nudist colony, and apparently the towel fell off at one point during the shooting of that, so we look forward to seeing that on CBC later this week. And we thank you very, very much for being here. Sorry that we brought you in under somewhat false pretenses, but we wanted to make it a bit of a surprise for you. So congratulations. I know you're going to stay in the community. We'll see you out and about, and look forward to continuing your tweets on your bus ride back into Canada and back and forth. And we thank you very much for 3 decades of professionalism in the field of journalism. Thank you. Roll call please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Manette.
Present.
Councillor Blois.
Here.
Councillor Harder. Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Caudry.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Egline.
Here.
Councillor Deans. Here. Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Clark.
Ici.
Councillor Holmes.
Here.
Councillor Hobbs.
Here.
Councillor McCrae.
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Present.
Councillor Hume. Conseiller Blais.
Present.
Councillor Thompson.
Present.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Conseiller DeRoche. Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
Ici.
Le quorum est 10, Monsieur le Maire.
You have the quorum.
Members of council as well as members of the public who are here and perhaps watching online or on Rogers Cable 22, you saw some activity in Jean Piggott Hall in the hallway. This is the YBiz fair that I talked about in my State of the City address. We have over 100 entrepreneurs who went through the YMYWCA business program for entrepreneurs. And there are some amazing success stories out there. I'd encourage you, if you do have time after council, it starts at 11 and goes till 7 p.m. tonight, to go and encourage these entrepreneurs who are used to display their wares at an annual event at the YMCA. And when I was at the Y, I was so impressed with the quality and caliber and diversity of the different businesses that have been started. I thought, why not have it down here at City Hall where a lot more people can come by and see. So they're from all parts of the city. I suspect almost every ward is represented there with over 100 businesses. And I encourage you and others who are watching to come down to City Hall today between 11 and 7 and go and see some of the services and products that are being available. They're all local people, and we wish them the very best. Confirmation of minutes, adoption de procès verbeux le 11 juin 2014, 11th June 2014. Carried. Declarations of interest, including those originally arising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêts, y compris ceux découlant de réunions antérieures. Received none. Communications as presented. Regrets, Councillor Jan Harder advised she'll be absent from the council meeting of June 25th, 2014 due to city business. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hume, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hume, that the report from Hydro Ottawa Holding Inc., entitled Hydro Ottawa Holding Inc. 2013 Annual Report, the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending 20th of June 2014, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee 42A, Arbuckle Petition for Drainage Works, meeting to consider Engineers Report, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 32, Planning Committee Report 72A, and Transit Commission Report 27 be received and considered.
Carried. Postponements and deferrals. We have one item from Planning Committee Report number 71A, and there's a technical amendment. Councillor Hume, if you'd like to introduce that, seconded by Councillor Blais. Site plan control bylaw update, règlement sur la réglementation de plan d'implémentation mise à jour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The update that was provided and it was approved by Planning Committee and that was brought forward at our last meeting the bylaw did not contain a provision for letters of undertaking, which is a fairly standard program within our site plan control bylaw. It was an inadvertent omission, and when it was discovered, Council was asked to delay the approval of this item so that I could present a motion that would put back in the requirements for letters of undertaking. So that is before you now. It is a standard provision within our site plan control bylaw that, as I said, exists today and was inadvertently left off when the adjustments were made. So.
Okay. Are there any questions on this technical amendment? On the amendment? Carried. On the report as amended? Carried. The next is Hydro Ottawa Holdings Incorporated. This is the 2013 annual report annuel de 2013 pour Société de Portefeuille d'Hydro Ottawa. We have a presentation by Board Chair Jim Durrell, who's probably thinking back. I think the last time you would have been in here was as a regional councillor, Mr. Durrell, and Bryce Conrad, the CEO. And we'll turn the floor over to you, and we have a report with a series of recommendations as well as copies of your annual report. Mr. Durrell.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire et Mesdames.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the councillors.
And I know that you have all met our CEO in the past, Bryce Conrad. And also joining us back here is our Chief Operating Officer, Norm Fraser, and our Chief Financial Officer, Jeff Simpson. I would like to acknowledge the input to start with of, as you all know, we operate through a shareholders declaration, and we've had the privilege of having a number of members of council serve on our board, and I can assure you that they've served diligently and very professionally, and their input has been appreciated. I'd like to pay special attention to Councillor McCrae and Councillor Hume, who sat on the holding company board, and to Councillor Minette, who sat on the Hydro Operating Company board, and to thank the three of you, along with yourself, Your Worship, for your input and your guidance. You've all read the report, so I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time going through it. I'll have Bryce take you through some of the highlights, and then I'll touch on some issues on corporate social responsibility and on the governance issue before you. It was obviously a very good year, and I think the good news from all of our perspective is that Hydro Ottawa continued to serve safe, reliable, and efficient energy to 315,000 homes in the Ottawa area, while at the same time investing an unprecedented amount in infrastructure and renewable energy. So these are pluses that all resulted in us having a net income of $32.1 million and being able to distribute slightly over $19 million back to the City Council and the City of Ottawa in the form of a dividend. Those are great news for everybody here. It's, I think, bears testimony to the professional management that you as a city and as our sole shareholder have operating Hydro Ottawa. And Bryce, I'll have you take the council through some of the highlights, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The company's improved financial performance in 2013 was largely a result of the acquisition of Chaudière Falls and our renewable generation facilities, as well as...
Bryce, just turn your microphone to you, please.
So the company's performance in 2013 was largely a result of our acquisition of the Chaudière Falls, as well as our renewable generation facilities coming online. Notwithstanding the unprecedented level of dividend, we actually, our Hydro Ottawa Limited, which is the electric company, the distribution company, actually didn't meet its budget. But again, a testament to the strength from our generation assets, we were able to deliver a $19.3 million dividend. Our generation assets, renewable generation for 2013 was $21 million, which was 91% higher than the year before. And again, it speaks to the investment and the acquisitions that we've made. We're also pleased to report, as a number of you know, that earlier this winter we were successful in acquiring an OPA, an Ontario Power Authority contract, a 40-year contract to sort of allow us to develop the Chaudière Falls assets, and that's something that we'll be embarking on over the course of the next year. So those renewable generation assets will continue to pay dividends going forward. Our customer satisfaction ratings remain very high at 90%, which is again better than the provincial average, and something that we track very closely. We continue to be a leader in conservation, and if you look at the chart, you'll see the average consumption dropping precipitously. That is the citizens of Ottawa saving energy year after year after year. Just to give a bit of flavor to that chart, 1 in 6 in-home displays put in place in the province of Ontario is here in Ottawa. So citizens of Ottawa are both embracing conservation and delivering on it. In terms of our electricity, a reliable electrical service, which, as the chair pointed out, is the bread and butter of what we do. We invested $134 million last year, which is the largest investment ever in capital, and I appreciate that resulted in some roads being torn up and some other activities, but it is what is necessary to keep the power on. So, again, something that we're proud of. With respect to our workforce is aging, unlike our infrastructure. We are doing everything we possibly can, including developing apprenticeship programs, working with Algonquin College to deliver a power line maintainer program, as well as recently we launched a retiree engagement strategy, affectionately known as Prime Time, where we can capture some of the retirees and the knowledge that they have as they walk out the door, to ensure that these young kids who are the new young engineers that we have on staff are able to sort of deliver at the same level of performance. Last but not least, as many at council know, we are in the process of revisiting our real estate portfolio with a view to rationalizing these facilities. These are facilities that are at end of life and require significant amounts of capital upgrade to keep them current. We have acquired 2 parcels of property, and we will be moving forward with the development of a new headquarters and a new South Operations Center to service the growing area of Barrhaven. Turn it back over to Jim.
Yeah. Everybody is... Oh, there we go. Corporate social responsibility became a buzzword about 10 years ago. And I think one of the things that we should all be very proud of in this chamber is the role that Hydro Ottawa plays in your community outside of just delivering safe and efficient hydro to our homes and businesses. We've been very involved with Christie Lake Kids, and another highlight I would have to say would be over $250,000 that were raised by the employees of Hydro Ottawa for United Way. And as the mayor and many of you would know, the mayor being a former chair of United Way, it does incredible work at ensuring that we have a strong social fabric in our community. And I'm very pleased that Hydro Ottawa employees played such an important part of this. The final issue that I would really like to deal with would be one on the governance issue, which you have before you. The bottom line of the 3 recommendations there are to reduce duplication, eliminate some costs, and really allow your board, on behalf of you as the shareholder, to operate more effectively. And the first is obviously to downsize the hydro operating company and really move all of the members of the board into the hydro operating company, or the hydro holding company. If you sat around the table of the board, you would see duplication. You would see chairs of committees not reporting up through the main board. It was created this way about 7-8 years ago because of a change in the Act. And now when you look at all the large local distribution hydro companies, you'll see they're doing exactly what we're proposing to you today. The second is to introduce term limits to board members. This is a foundation of strong governance in any board, and we think that it's something that will serve you better, keep your board renewed, revitalized, and always doing what we want as the City of Ottawa. And the third is really more of a housekeeping issue, and that is ensuring that the board of Hydro Ottawa and you as a city have the opportunity to take advantage of changes in the legislation. There was a call that we received from a city councillor on the energy storage, which I gather in obviously the legislation allows us to do it. We're not going to be in the energy storage business, much like the legislation allows us to distribute gas. We're not in that business either. What it does is allows your board at any point in time, should legislation change, and it's going to continue to change over the years, if there's something that we deem to be advantage to the City of Ottawa and to Hydro Ottawa, then naturally we would act on it accordingly. But I can assure you at this point in time, there is not any interest at all in energy storage, much as there is no interest in us doing a few of the other things I mentioned. So with that, Monsieur le Maire, I'll close up, and we would be more than happy to take any questions that any of you might have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Mr. President. We have a number of councillors who have questions. Councillor Blois, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is probably my last chance to take a kick at this one, but I'm sure Mr. Conrad's probably anxiously awaiting the question with his ready answer. You mentioned a number of the acquisitions, the 3 hydroelectric plants, and you talk about the latest acquisition. The real one that interests us around here is the Hydro One customers that really belong to the city, that 10 years ago the political promises were made that this could be done with a stroke of a pen, and I haven't seen that pen stroke yet. Can you advise on that? Can you update us?
14 years ago, not 10.
Oh, sorry, 14. My colleagues heard other promises even longer, further back.
Yeah, let me express my shock and dismay that this was the first question to come up.
So you're ready for it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I've been ready for over 3 years. Keep answering the same question.
I think we surprised you the first time, though.
Okay, I'll give you that. Okay. The short answer to the question is that there is no movement towards the acquisition. I'm a big believer that good ideas don't have expiration dates or best before dates, so we'll continue to pursue it because it is a good idea. It's the right thing to do. From an equity, from a transparency, from a fairness perspective, it is absolutely appalling that if you live on one side of the street, you pay 30% more for your electricity than you do on the other side. That said, Hydro One is in acquisition mode, not in disposition mode. They've recently acquired Norfolk Energy as well as another one, that's a small utility. I never say never. There's new leadership at Hydro One. I think we have an opportunity to sort of engage that leadership. But I'm not sure I would hold my breath at this point in time, Councillor.
I guess what we're hearing from our residents is they would like to be part of the better rates and more reliable service that you provide. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Councillor Blois. Councillor Aguilar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. One I guess, is for the clerk's office or for legal. One of the changes that's being recommended is going to bind the new council. The changes will go into effect after the election. We're often told we're not allowed to do that. So how is this different?
Mr. Mayor, this is under the Business Corporations Act, and the new council obviously would have an opportunity to review at the appropriate time and make any further changes that they deemed appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to go to the change in governance suggested, and if I understand correctly from both the report and the presentation, that the issue is in and around if there are changes to the provincial legislation. Hydro wants to be in a position to respond to those quickly and efficiently. Is that essentially the motive, if you will, behind the suggested changes?
I would say yes for the most part, Councillor. I think if we all recognize that we live in a time of great change, and we read the paper every day like all of you and see the news, and certainly Ontario Hydro, OPG, and Hydro One are in the news every other day. And there have been numerous commissions put forward by the provincial government talking about changes and how the legislation will be possibly in the future for energy. All we want to do is be able to take advantage of those should a change come that we deem as a board would be advantageous to Hydro Ottawa and thus obviously to you as the shareholder, and nothing more and nothing less. It's kind of saying that it allows us to be nimble if we had to be, although I don't view it as that as the main reason. I view it more as just as truly a housekeeping issue, and one that allows us to take advantage of possible changes that would be good for us.
And how do you propose to loop back to council? I mean, obviously there would be a lot of advance notice of a change to provincial legislation. So how do you, what are you suggesting to get back to us to get our input as to whether I appreciate there's the board and we have members on the board, though there'll be less of them. So how do you get our input as to whether we think that's a good line of business, for example, for you to get into?
Very good question. I'll start by saying that Hydro Ottawa, as you know, operates through a shareholder declaration. And I think one of the reasons that Hydro Ottawa has operated efficiently is, one, it's been very open and transparent on how it's dealt with the shareholder, and two, it operates ostensibly as an independent board. Council protects itself and the citizens of Ottawa by ensuring that you have representation on that board. And I never get caught up in a numbers game. What is important is the quality of the people who serve on the board. And I have every confidence that in the next council, that the representation of the council members will be two individuals who, quite frankly, will bring, much like the existing councillors, who will bring expertise of their own. But the reason that Hydro Ottawa operates efficiently is that it does not run back to City Council every day when it looks at something. It has to be able to make decisions on a daily basis and be accountable. Your protection as the shareholder is through the nominating committee, you appoint the board members. And should Hydro Ottawa ever operate outside of a parameter that, and I can't ever imagine it happening, because I can assure you that you have a very strong and healthy board with very clear governance policies and very clear reporting policies. But through the members of City Council who sit as directors, if Hydro Ottawa were to ever decide on something that we thought would be a profound change or would expand the limits of our shareholder declaration, we would never do so without talking to City Council. But on the same vein, I don't want you to think for a moment that the Board of Hydro would come back to City Council every time it's looking at doing some business transaction of some sort, much like when we did Chaudière Falls. It was done as a part of the shareholder declaration. It involved a considerable sum of money. It increased and enhanced shareholder value tremendously, and will probably, for many, 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 many years, pay tremendous dividends to you as a councillor and to me as a citizen. So I don't know if that answers, but the one thing that I think I would zealously, as the chair of Hydro, and I would like to think other chairs of Hydro would do the same on behalf of their board, is to protect its independence while recognizing very much who the shareholder is. And much like in any public corporation, there's a very fine line, and if the shareholder doesn't like how the board is operating, they remove that board. And that is always the right of City Council. Having said that, our board, to operate effectively as a business, has to have that independence within the shareholder declaration.
Well, first a statement, then a follow-up question. So I'm very pleased to hear your public commitment to come back and talk to Council if you think there's something of significance, a significant change coming down the road. So I appreciate that. You talked a little bit in your presentation about areas that you wouldn't go into. For example, energy conservation. Energy storage, sorry, yes. Can you give us some sense this morning of some of the areas that you would think of getting into?
Who knows where the legislation will go, and that's the key factor. Like, depending on who you talk to, and I think our CEO alluded to it very well in response to Councillor Blose's question on why aren't we involved with the citizens of Cumberland. And there have been numerous reports recommending a number of changes. Some of those changes could include Hydro Ottawa being the local distributing company for all of Eastern Ontario. And it would be presumptuous of me, or anybody for that fact, to figure out where this legislation is going. So I'd love to give you a more specific answer, but I really couldn't. And I was interested when the third point, which, you know, internally as we were moving through it on our board, when we went through it, and I think Councillor McRae and Councillor Hume would recall this, this was the issue that literally from a board's perspective was just a housekeeping issue. And nothing more and nothing less. So I'd love to say this is where we might go, this is what we might do. I don't know where the future holds, and we spend a lot of time talking about it too, trust me.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hubley, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Before I ask my question, I just want to publicly commend the CEO, Bryce, for the fact that I live in an area that experiences blackouts, not as regular as we used to, but we still have some. And to be upfront about that, we understand that that's because the City of Canada did not invest in the infrastructure. It's not a Hydro Ottawa caused problem, but it's a problem that Hydro Ottawa has been dealing quite well with, and they've been making a number of investments. But Bryce is always quick response when there is an issue. He gets back to us with the details about what's going on and helps inform the residents. So I want to publicly commend you for that. And then I want to ask you the tough question. Appreciate you coming here with the $19 million check, but I'm sure you're aware that people are going to want to know why we can't use that to lower rates. Could you expand on why this money is separate from the rate money?
Thank you. Appreciate the, and I appreciate your leadership in dealing with those outages. I know firsthand how frustrating they are, and you've been very quick to step up and sort of and very transparent with your constituents, which makes it easier. It makes my job easier as well. So thank you for that. With respect to your question, with respect to the dividend, the $19.3 million dividend is essentially the way the financial model works for Hydro Ottawa and for utilities regulated in Ontario, which is a heavily regulated business, is we make a rate of return on invested capital. So to be honest with you, the $19.3 million includes a portion of that as the non-regulated business, the generation assets I spoke of earlier. But even if you had no $19.3 million dividend, it would have no impact on the rates. The correlation between the two is not, there's no correlation at all, in fact. So it's not as simple as saying, well, if I gave back 19.3, my rates would go down. That's not the way it works. Our rates are set by the Ontario Energy Board based on a long-term, asset management plan. It reflects the capital investments that we'll be making and we have made. So our commitment to you is to return that dividend so that you at City Council can take that dividend payment, whatever that be, this year 19.3, and turn around and use that for the benefit of your constituents. So I would suggest that's where the rates would go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hubley. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back a little bit to getting stuff from Hydro One, I find it really, really weird that the outlet mall, a large urban development, is going to be on Hydro One, because it's a little piece of my ward that was in West Carleton before. And I don't know if you've actually talked to them at all about at least trying to get some of it turned over to start the process. Or if not else, I think we do have to go to the province, because when we set up Canada Hydro, we actually had to get the provincial cabinet to tell Hydro Ottawa, wasn't Hydro One then, it was a name, but Ontario Hydro, what they could charge for taking over their things. And they didn't tell us all the problems we get in because of what they'd done, but that was how we had to do it. And I think that's the only way we're going to actually ever have this happen, is to have a very strong directive that way that forces them to do it at a reasonable rate and not charge 30 years of lost profit. I was just thinking, how much profit are we going to get this one new development that's going to just shoot the price right up?
Hello? Sorry, totally appreciate your comment, Councillor. that is an anomaly in your ward. Obviously the Canadian Tire Centre across the street is serviced by Hydro One. I'd suggest an even more ludicrous example would be Place d'Orleans, where the Target side is served by Hydro One and the Bay side is served by Hydro Ottawa. So as long as
the Canadian Tire is served by you, I mean,
it is served by us. That's correct.
If it was in Canada, but the border was Huntmar. That's across the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's simply a division based on map. So you're on one side of the street, you're Hydro One. You're on the other side, you're on
But
Hydro
after
Ottawa.
13, 14 years, I think it's time to really push hard on this one. I'm certainly willing to go and scream at them if you need me to.
I think there needs to be, general recognition that Hydro One, no matter what people may think of it, is a provincial corporation that pays a dividend back to the provincial government. And,
but they're owned by the provincial government,
correct.
just like we own you, and they should do what they're told.
Absolutely true, but they're also generating a very healthy dividend back to the provincial government, and that those residents that live in Cumberland, where you're getting that density, the densification, those rates are being used to cross-subsidize some of the more rural customers that they own. So I'm not defending it in any way. I appreciate that the desire to get these people, and as I said in response to Councillor Belos's question, I think with renewed leadership at the Hydro One, we have an opportunity to go back and have that conversation. We have had that conversation with Minister Chiarelli. We have had that conversation with Minister Bentley. We have had that conversation, as councillors know, for 14 years.
We need to have others with you. I've also, the other questions I have, you said that if you change the business activity, you want to have almost carte blanche to do things without having to take it to council for approval first. But you would let us know about it. But where is the legal requirement that you would let us know what you've done so we have a chance to speak to it? Because saying you're going to do it now with the present people in place, in 10 years' time there'll be different people in place, and how do we know this is still going to happen?
At this time, Councillor, we operate through a shareholder declaration. And that shareholder declaration gives your Hydro Ottawa the rules of engagement. And unless that declaration specifically required that we do not do certain things of business, it really then is incumbent on the board to use good judgment, good management, recognizing the shareholder, recognizing what we're doing. And it really, frankly, would be no different than any other business decision that Hydro Ottawa would take, so that whether it's investing in certain infrastructure projects, whether it's going ahead on Chaudière Falls, which was a major undertaking, all of these things fall within the purview of what we would call day-to-day operations, where you rely as shareholder on the good judgment of your management and of your board, of which you have representation from council. And that's about the best I could give you an answer. To me, if Hydro Ottawa, with every decision that it was going to make on infrastructure or any other issue, if it were to come back to City Council, then you might as well just turn it into a committee of council and disband with the board.
I'm not saying that, but you've got two changes in here. One is update existing business activity restrictions such that you're able to carry out business activities and keeping the provincial legislation, etc. And there was a situation before, which in fact council agreed to, that you bought something and it went sour. So I guess that didn't help in that case. But this is the one that I think we need to keep an eye on, because it's very easy in business to make bad decisions as well as good ones. And I'm sure you're well aware of that. And by taking this off, this gives you kind of a carte blanche with anything within the provincial mandate. That's what it says there.
We didn't, and I would say in fairness, Councillor, that we didn't look at this to be a bunch of cowboys or do anything else. This really was, interestingly enough, from the board's perspective, was just a housekeeping issue. And it wasn't to go charging off in a direction that would in any way, in our estimation, jeopardize what is a very soundly run corporation. Will Hydro Ottawa in its lifetime make mistakes in the future? I guarantee you they will. They're operated by people, and things will happen, and we'll all look at each other, and City Council, as the shareholder at that time, will say, how did that ever happen? Whatever that happened was. But for the most part, like when you run a business, if everything you did was going to be perfect, it would be a wonderful business. The world doesn't work that way. You know that at City Council. And so Hydro Ottawa isn't any different. And it's run by a very accomplished group of executives and employees. And I would dare say you have a very competent and efficient board, and one that has the best interests of the City of Ottawa and of you as shareholder. And you can't do anything more than that, quite frankly. You can't ask any more than that if you wish to continue to operate on an independent board. Other than that, as I say, you really move to a committee of City Council and have Council run Hydro Ottawa. And that would be your...
I think you're going overboard on what the difference would be, frankly.
Yeah.
These are just major things, and you have your orders of what you can do now, which we're not getting involved in.
Yep.
Anyway, the other thing isn't changing the board. Just keep talking about having good city councillors on it. Well, I look at the numbers we're going to have. The HOL board would be 3 members, the chair of the HOH board, the president or chief executive officer, and 1 director. There could be 0 council members on that, depending on how you appoint it. And then the other one is going to be the mayor and 1 city councillor and 8 independent directors. So this is going to be run by members of the public. Yes, we select them, but we've seen what happens with some other boards when they go under. I've seen company after company in high tech with good quality boards have problems, and so have you. That's not very much city requirements. If we have nobody on the one board from council, that could happen depending on the selection, then how do we get that feedback back if they do see things happening that they are uncomfortable with but they want to report back to us?
The operating company at this time, all of the financial decisions, all of the borrowings and everything are done through the holding company. And so it really, every decision almost made by the operating company is then moved up to the holding company. And if you were to sit as a board member, there is an enormous duplication. And it's not, we're not talking security or making good or bad decisions. We're talking just the same report being handled in the morning, then being handled in the afternoon again. And it really doesn't frankly make sense.
Well, that's what we're doing here today. We take our committee reports and they come to council. It's a similar situation.
Well, and that's what will happen. The hydro operating will then deal with the issues and it'll go up. But the fact of the matter is the holding company, which is the premier company and has all of the financial abilities to do things, none of that changes. That's still going to be the same number of people on the board. And
but we're reducing by 1 the city council representation.
Correct.
At the same numbers and reducing the number. Why?
Well, only that if you wish, we could increase the size of the board. To me, that it's
I'm not talking about reducing the size. I said you've got 11 people, 2 from council and 9 not council.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no magical number, Councillor. We went to the Institute on Governance. We looked at Aird and Bearless LLP, and they gave us a report. We looked at other local distribution companies. This isn't an effort to subvert council in any way. You have to trust us in that. It was an effort to try and bring as many people as possible on the board, keeping the board at a reasonable size with expertise, respecting the fact that members of City Council have to be involved because you're the shareholder. And I don't, frankly, if you wanted to appoint 8 members of council to run the board, or...
We're not asking for that.
No, I know. So I don't know what the magic number is, quite frankly. And when we went through it, we thought that this was a reasonable number. It allowed us the opportunity to draw on other areas of expertise from our city and continue to keep a strong and vibrant board. And the board was extremely comfortable with it.
Wait, I can understand the board would be comfortable with it.
Anything else, Councillor? Councillor Wilkinson, do you have other points? Because there are a number of people that want to ask.
It is a great... I'm concerned about this with Mr. Mayor because I know that council members are not always available and things. So if you only got 1 council member plus the mayor, you could end up sometimes not having anybody there. And that's why if we had 2 council members plus the mayor, I think it would be better.
One thing, and I think all members of council will agree with this, again, and there's no magical number. Every single month you receive from our CEO, and we pride ourselves in our transparency, a very detailed report on all of the happenings at Hydro. The last thing, and you all know this, Hydro Ottawa is not a secretive company. It is open, it's transparent in all of its actions, and it will continue to be so. And again, I'm not married to any particular number. We felt that we wanted to keep the board size at 11. We thought this was an appropriate number, a manageable number. And secondly, we thought in order to take advantage of the incredible expertise that this city offers us in the private and public sectors, the combination of 9 and 2 was a good combination.
And Mr. Pierre, just to finish, I'd like to correct one thing about the work that had to get done in Canada. Canada is one of the first places in the province to have underground wiring. It was done by Ontario Hydro at the time, and a lot of it was getting old at the time. So a lot of the faults and problems have come back from that original one. So blaming another organization I don't think is fair. It's just something that happens over age.
And Councillor, I'd be more than happy to give up my seat on the Hydro board, so that would create 2 positions for members of council. So thank you, Councillor Clark.
Is that thank you, Councillor Clark, or is it announcing that you're going to let me talk? And you're going to give up your seat on the board? Well, I'm going to look forward to that. In any event, I appreciate the report on a good operating year. And I also appreciate the one stroke of the pen that Rainer brought up, because 30 years ago we were in a similar discussion and nothing's changed. I think the one stroke of the pen, though, that, as I recall, was a stroke of the pen on a check. Seems that Ontario Hydro had valued their assets at beyond reachable limits, and I suspect the same thing's true today. The outdated plant, which causes blackouts in Canada and other places, were valued as if they were brand new billion-dollar investments. And, we just cannot willy-nilly just change all that. Now, we agreed that to our citizens, like on the Cumberland half of Place d'Orléans, alias the Target half, as you mentioned earlier, it seems unconscionable that people on that side pay a lot more for hydro than people on the other side. As I recall, it wasn't that differential wasn't the same as it is today, and that's because of all the increases Hydro One has had to put in place. In any event, I have, in this long and tortured history of mine, a good recollection of why we didn't do it at the time, and I suspect that the stroke of the pen is not going to happen anytime soon, Councillor Blois. I also suspect that we've had some success taking over the Chaudière facility. Have we ever considered taking over another facility, which is down by the City Hall, at Durrell Hall, I think they called it, after it got built? And or maybe they didn't. Green Island, there's on the south or maybe the west side of Green Island is a hydro plant. Has that ever been considered that we should acquire it?
Council, I've been with the company for 3 years, and so I can say in my 3 years we've not.
Talk a little closer to the mic,
sorry,
please.
In my 3 years at the company, we've not looked at that asset. Not to say that we couldn't or wouldn't. Obviously, renewable generation is something that is a business activity that we are quite keen on. So I'm happy to take it off and take a look at it and see if there's a willing seller. There has to be one, obviously.
Well, they're probably not willing to sell because they're just printing money. But I really think if it's in our physical territory, we should own it. And that's the same argument Rainer's making. And I look at the operating results and say that you've had a fine result this year, and if taking over that small cogeneration plant on the Rideau would assist, that would be something that would be good for all of us. That's a political statement, by the way. I have no questions. I think you've done a good job.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Clark. Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
Thank you very much. The issue of burial of hydro wires when we're doing Main Street reconstruction is often a prominent one when we plan those projects. Community members are determined that this is the great opportunity to bury the wires. There's business opportunities. There's more streetscape available. One of the challenges that we run into, of course, because of Council's policy, we've got to go looking for money, and the cheaper that part of the project could be, the easier it might be to find that money. But we do get estimates from, when we have asked for estimates from Hydro Ottawa, I would characterize them in the views of many in the community. They seem higher than they think that a private sector contractor might be able to do the same work. There's also a very wide variance of, I forget the exact, minus 25%, plus 50 or 75%, which is almost like, you know, could be 1, could be 2, or could be 5, could be 10. Can you explain to account for that variability?
Sure, absolutely. And the number's 4 to 10 times the cost of stringing a wire. Burying a wire would be 4 to 10 times the cost. Why the range? Well, if I'm doing something where I've got dense urban settings, say down Bank Street, obviously you're moving cables, you're moving wires, you're moving other utilities potentially. That's the cost. I would venture to guess that A, nobody could do it cheaper than we can, and B, nobody can do it other than us. So, you know, the policy is set in place by the City of Ottawa. It works with us. We're happy to bury whatever wires they want, the city wants buried, but it does come at a premium.
Mm-hmm. I didn't quite catch, is you were saying no one can do it except you, in the sense that you're the only one authorized to do that? And if that was what you're saying, of course there's always a criticism from the public. If it's, quote, a monopoly, you know, it's bound to be more expensive than if there was a competitive system in place.
We're a highly regulated monopoly. We do this work today with the city. You know, we will bury lines today. Other companies can do that as part of the work. We're still involved in that work. So if I took Bronson as an example, you know, I believe the company was Broccolini, I forget, Coletti was doing that job. We were working with them on that. The costs are what the costs are, Councillor. It's not a, there's not a markup on from our perspective. It is what it costs us to embed that infrastructure. So.
Mm-hmm. Assuming that is the case, I think there would be benefit, as this is going to come up with any, I can't imagine any reconstruction project in any of our wards where people wouldn't prefer that the wires be buried. Obviously, the cleaner streetscape, the extra space, potential, you know, fewer restrictions on design of buildings, etc. I would look forward to greater clarity, if I could put it that way, for community members and all of us as councillors as to why the cost, why your cost estimate is what it is, that it is not a markup, some sense of comparison or proof that, you know, they couldn't have gone elsewhere to, you know, to get a better price, because that's constantly came back. Bank Street, we had to make a very rapid decision, so it was a bit of a different scenario. But Main Street, we've just been through 2 years of advanced planning, and, you know, there's probably at this moment, it'd be fair to say, I still have a couple of community members that haven't quite given up on, you know, can't we bury the wires? We really have had to, if you pardon the pun, bury that, you know, that issue and make a decision to move on. But again, it's very frustrating for people that they feel this could have been done. You know.
I certainly appreciate that, and if Main Street is the example that you'd like me to dig into and sort of get you some real numbers on and some costing, I'm happy to do so. We'll take that off directly with you if that's okay.
That would be very helpful. That one is, I'm going to have double puns here. Very much a live issue. Okay, I better stop.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Shanchenko. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to talk about the dividend just a little bit. Looking at the shareholder value of the asset, if I'm reading this right, the current value of Ottawa Hydro is about $380 million. Is that right?
No, it would be dramatically more than that. It would be in excess of, without putting numbers, it would be in the billion-dollar range.
So why does this chart on page 4 have shareholder value, the little blue line going up at 2013 at the $380 million mark?
Sorry, that's shareholder equity and cumulative dividends. So that's what we're returning back to the city. The value of the corporation is independent of that.
So $19.2 million dividend, our return on investment is what?
13% return. Between the dividend and the shareholder, and the increase in shareholder equity is 13% last year.
Okay, and just the dividend, if we're just talking about the dividend?
I'll guess and say not somewhere in the range of 8 or 9%. I can get you that number. I just don't have it offhand.
How is that calculated? I'm not quite understanding how that's calculated. If it's $1 billion asset and the return on investment is $19.2 million, how does that get to be 8%?
The return on investment is not 19.2. The dividend is 19.2. The dividend is set through the shareholder declaration, which states that the corporation will return 60% of our net income or $14 million, whichever is greater. So in this case, it's 19.3, represents 60% of our net income from last year.
The net income was $32 million?
32.2, yes.
Okay, and so going forward, how healthy is that dividend? Can we expect that to continue?
I see. The short answer would be there is a natural erosion that occurs in the profitability of the corporation the further it gets away from its rate setting. So we rate set in 2012. Our regulated rates are set in 2012, so 2012 would have been a good year. 2013 was a good year. As we get into 2014 and 2015, the profitability erodes because we're only getting relief to the tune of about a percentage point a year while our costs are increasing. We then re-rate set again in 2016. So you have this kind of unfortunate step down and then pop back up. So the short answer is in the strategic plan that we tabled here in 2011, we committed to $150 million in $150 million in shareholder in net income and $90 million in dividends over a 5-year period ending in 2016. What we're saying here today is we're well on track to achieve those targets.
So if we were plugging into a number into our budget next year, is 19.2 or somewhere in that range a safe bet? No. So what would the number be you would be recommending us putting into our budget next year?
On a quarterly basis, I send a letter to the city manager and the city treasurer, and I believe they've put in a plug of $16 million on an annual basis. I would say that is to go to the Paul Martin School of Budgeting, under promise and over deliver. I would put in the $16 million, and we'll over deliver if we can.
Okay. It just doesn't seem like a lot on an asset that's valued at over $1 billion. Am I missing something?
It depends on your definition of value, I guess, Councillor. I think the
let's say we sold Ottawa Hydro and took the $1 billion plus and put it in the bank, how much could we expect to get? And I guess the answer is, I think, maybe more than that.
I believe there was some analysis done back in 2008 with respect to the monetization of the asset, and I think the advice given to the council at that time was that the the asset is better to hold on to, the asset being Hydro Ottawa, and return the annual dividend than it would be to monetize that asset. But as a shareholder, the sole owner of the corporation, it is within your purview to do as such.
It's just that we have to keep that dividend strong.
The dividend is only a part of the story, though.
And then
right?
the growth of the asset.
The asset as well, exactly. So, I mean, if I go back and say we returned on the return on investment last year was 13%. There's not a lot of vehicles out there, investment vehicles, that are going to pay double-digit returns. So, I mean, I would use that number as opposed to the dividend.
Yeah, I'd like to understand that number a little better, because it seems like a paper number to me, value number to me, and I don't really see where that comes from. So maybe somebody could offline explain that to me. In terms of the governance, I mean, I understand that you're working as a business in a regulated environment, and we don't control rates, and that you want to be nimble. I understand all that. Where I have the problem is, other than the annual shareholder meeting, there is a lack of communication back to council on what's going on. So I'm thinking that perhaps if we go ahead with these recommendations today, we need, as a council, to figure out how our members on the board are going to report to us about what's happening. I mean, this is a huge asset for the corporation. I think we have a big oversight responsibility to make sure that whatever decisions are being taken are in the public interest. And so I think that we need to have either a quarterly report or some more information coming to council about what's happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And our last member of council has questions. Conseiller Monette.
Next one, I got to listen to the master.
Councillor Monette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The Cumberland Connection.
I'd like to thank Jim and Bryce for the work that you've done since I've been on the board. Once I got on the board, one of the issues that was always important is the issue that Councillor Blows brought up, and I agree. There's been a lot of discussions, and been reassured that we will keep that dialogue going with the province, and keep working at it so that we can put them all under the one governance. As far as structure goes, there's a question about reporting. Bryce or Jim, can you explain what the procedure is right now for reporting back to council? How often you have reports that go back to council?
Thank you, Councillor. Outside of the annual general meeting, and I appreciate the concerns that have been raised here, there is and outside of our regular board meetings, and the attendance of all board members is in that report. There is a regular contact between Bryce and our organization and the finance department and the city manager's department on a quarterly basis. There's financial accounting done there. On a monthly basis, as I had mentioned earlier, there is an information article that's extremely detailed, and I respect that council gets many, many information articles. But anybody who had any question about anything going on in Hydro Ottawa would be able to, in that email, be able to instantly see if there was an area of concern and or of interest. And the one thing that we internally have taken continual pride at is our transparency. And as councillors know, when there is an issue in their particular area, there's a special email line that you have available to you so you can respond to your own customer base quickly and efficiently. Those are the types of things. We recognize that while we are an independent organization, we are in every respect a very public organization with a very public shareholder. And to not acknowledge and operate that way would be to operate at our own peril. And so there is a continual line of communication, A, through your members of council who sit on our board, B, through the information that Bryce distributes on a monthly basis to council. And I urge you to read it if you have an interest. And C, through from your finance department, the city manager's department, through to our department as we measure our financial sustainability.
Thank you. I think it was important to clarify that because some councillors had some questions on it. So I personally like the new structure. I think it will streamline and it'll make it more efficient. Right now, having sat on it, I've seen where the duplication was, and there's no need to have two meetings talking about the same issue. And this will definitely make it more effective and more productive for Ottawa Hydro. As far as more councillors sitting on it, I don't believe that you need more councillors. I think the two that's suggested is enough to report back to council. I've always liked the idea of having the community, expertise in the community sit on the board like that. And I think that's where you get a lot more ideas and a lot more support as you move forward. I just wanted to comment on the workforce of the Ottawa Hydro. Since having sat on it, one thing I've been impressed about is the philanthropy and the volunteer work that the staff do. And, whether it's United Way that you brought up earlier, and I remember at different meetings where we talked about percentage of money raised as compared to percentage of workers. It was incredible the amount that Ottawa Hydro workers do. And I'd like to make sure that that message goes back to the workforce, that around the council table we do appreciate the work that they do and after-hours work that they do. Not only when it comes for philanthropy, when there was issues in Toronto, when there was issues in the States, and they're the first ones to volunteer, pack up, and go and do the work. And that work is not always the safest environment, especially when you're going into critical areas. And, they should be recommended. And, I don't think we thank them enough about the type of workforce that we have. We even have volunteer days for handicapped children. Last year we had it for Gloucester Fair. And I remember we had the council meeting that day, but I followed it on the news, and we had reports after, and I remember seeing the faces of the kids and everything, probably some of them at first time being on the ride like that, and how was it done? It was again through the workforce. And again, thank you for that. And one final comment is there was talk that the workforce is aging, and you are looking at recruiting new workforce to replace the aging workforce. And I think that's important to send out the message that if anybody is looking for a future career and they're high school or just in college or university, to contact Ottawa Hydro and look into what's involved in getting into a career like that. Not many questions, but I just wanted to commend the Hydro Ottawa. I will not be looking for another term on the board next time. I explained that to you earlier. I'm always the type of councillor that first I was on the police board, did 4 years. This time was Ottawa Hydro, 4 years. And if I'm fortunate to get elected, I'll look at something else next term. Thank you.
Bon, merci, Conseiller Manette.
Thank you, Councillor Malette.
Jim Durrell and CEO Bryce Conrad, thank you very much for the thorough presentation and answering our questions. So we have a number of recommendations in front of us on the report before us. Carried. Councillor Wilkinson dissents on
IV on page, which number is that? 3 IV and 3 III and IV.
Does the clerk have that? Okay, thank you. City Clerk and Solicitor Department status update council inquiries received. Committee reports, Community and Protective Services, expansion of YMCA emergency shelter floors for families who are homeless, 180 Argyle Avenue, projet d'augmentation de nombre d'étages utilisés comme refuge d'urgence pour familles sans abri au YMCA. Carried. Thank you to Councillor Taylor. Planning Committee Report number 72A, Zoning Bylaw 87 Mann Avenue. Carried. Dissent by Councillor Fleury. Transit Commission Report number 27, rapport numéro 27 de transport en commune. Received. Received. Bulk consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda? On the bulk consent agenda as presented. Carried. Disposition of items approved by committees under delegated authority. Received. Meeting to consider the engineer's report under the Drainage Act. We have a motion by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Blais for a deferral on this because of some late breaking news and interventions. Councillor Thompson on the Arbuckle
Thank
drain.
you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Blais, that the item entitled Arbuckle Petition for Drainage Work be deferred to the council meeting of July 9th, 2014, to be placed on the agenda for consideration at a place the Mayor deems appropriate, and that the first and second reading of the bylaw be removed from today's agenda.
On the motion?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you. Councillor Thompson, motion to adopt reports.
Thank you,
Please.
Mr. Mayor. Moving myself, seconded by Councillor Hume, that the report from Hydro Ottawa, Inc., entitled Hydro Ottawa Holding, Inc., 2013 Annual Report, the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending 20 June 2014, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 42A, Arbuckle Petition for Drainage Works, meeting to consider the Engineer's Report, Community Protective Service Committee Report 32, Planning Committee Report 72A, and Transit Commission Report 27 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Merci. Motions of which notice have been previously given. I have a motion moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Caudry, with respect to buy-the-glass license. This is a requirement for local craft breweries and local wineries, and we have a number of them within the boundaries of the City of Ottawa to allow this buy-the-glass initiative. Carried. Cheers. Thank you. Motion by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Councillor Thompson, on your motion. This is on TELUS.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be very brief. I put forward this notice of motion for consideration today, and this is an application by TELUS to build a communications tower in an area that is surrounded by two schools and residential area. And I think the main reason why I brought this forward is that the applicant has not chosen to meet with me. I have requested on a couple of occasions for a meeting with him to discuss this, and he has not. I guess he's too busy. And also, I do not believe that the applicant has followed the guidelines that the city has for the location of these cell towers. And clearly, they did not look for cohabitation of a tower, their proposed tower and other towers, or they didn't really look
Carried.
for other locations.
Carried.
Carried.
Carried. Thank you. Councillor Blais, seconded by Councillor DeRush. Councillor Blais on a growth plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As everyone around this table knows, there is a tremendous amount of growth both in our city and in our region. Unfortunately, there is not a comprehensive plan to manage the growth region-wide, and often the goals that the City of Ottawa is trying to achieve are in conflict with our neighboring municipalities and vice versa. And policies relating to almost all elements of planning are in conflict. This is putting tremendous pressure on our infrastructure, both social and hard, particularly transportation and transit. And as a result, I think it's time that the province engage in a Eastern Ontario Places to Grow process so that we can have a regional planning policy, regional planning guidelines, and that all municipalities in Eastern Ontario are on the same page as to where growth is going to happen. We see it, huge growth in Carleton Place, huge growth in Kemptville and Rockland and other small municipalities around Ottawa, and that's obviously we don't get development charges or tax revenue from those municipalities, but we bear the brunt on infrastructure investments. So hoping that Council will support this request of the province so that we can move forward with regional planning.
Councillor DeRush, please.
Well, just on that point, Mr. Mayor, I support the motion and I seconded it. This came about as a result of discussions Councillor Blair and I were having as a result of the DC bylaw that we recently approved, and I think many of us are under pressure from our constituents to come up with money for a long list of growth-related projects, and certainly in South Ottawa, in my constituency, I know we are seeing pressure from areas like Kemptville that are using our road network. On the one hand, we welcome them in terms of them shopping and spending their money in the City of Ottawa, and we certainly aren't against them using our transportation network, but we do need to find a means by which they can contribute to the network that they're using, because we are seeing tremendous pressure. So I think it's something that is obviously beyond the scope of the City of Ottawa to deal with. This is a provincial responsibility, and I think we need to have a coherent plan here that responds to the residents who are very concerned about the pressures on our infrastructure and the limited means by which we can fund it. So I think we need to raise a flag here and say we need to address this. Thank you.
Right, on the motion, carried. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Councillor Thompson has a motion with respect to 5592, 5606, and 5630 Boundary Road and 9460 Mitch Owens Road. On suspending the rules, carried. Councillor Thompson, if you'd like to introduce your motion, seconded by Councillor Blais.
Yes, I don't have it in front of me, but I can read it from the screen. Can we move it down a little? Can't see it. Oh, sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Blais. Whereas report ACS 2014-PA1-PMG-014 being item 6 of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee report 44 recommends approval of amendment to zoning bylaw number 2008-250 for 5592, 5606, and 5630 Boundary Road and 9640 Mitch Owens Road to permit a range of rural industrial uses. And whereas a recommendation for approval was carried by this Council at its meeting of June 11th, 2014, and whereas document 2, details of recommended zoning of the said report reference 2 different minimum lot areas, where the second reference should have been with respect to minimum lot width. Therefore, be it resolved that the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and consider this motion to revise the above noted reference to lot width so that the amending zoning bylaw may be passed without further delay, and it be it further resolved that Council approve an amendment to document 2 detailed in recommended zoning of the said report be amended by replacing the text minimum lot area 30 square meters with the text minimum lot width 30 meters, and be it further resolved that pursuant to the Planning Act subsection 3417 no further notice be given.
Right. Councillor, could you explain that to us, please? On the motion, carried. Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion requiring suspension of the rules? No. Notice of motion for consideration of subsequent meeting. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very honored today to have notice of motion that moved by myself and seconded by my colleague, Councillor Holmes, and I think this is the first time that we've worked together on, so I appreciate your support. So the motion We do work together quite well. Anyway, I don't know if, do you want me to read it out or just...
Well, I think maybe just give a very brief summary because it's a notice of motion.
There is an organization in my community that needs some emergency funding, and so I'm bringing forward a motion in support of that organization from my office budget that would exceed the donation limit for that we're required to follow. And also there is a second portion that would relax the regulations over the spending cap for those people who are not running for re-election.
Okay, so that we'll deal with at our next meeting. Are there any other notices of motion for consideration at subsequent meeting? Est-ce qu'il y a des autres avis de motion? Motion to introduce bylaws, and just a reminder to members of council, the Arbuckle drain bylaw has been removed and deferred to a future meeting. Councillor Thompson, please. Councillor Thompson, introducing bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved myself, seconded by Councillor Hume, that the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws 3 readings be read and passed, and that the following additional bylaws be read and passed. A bylaw for the City of Ottawa to designate certain lands on Mancini Way as being exempt from part lot control. Carried.
Carried. Confirmation bylaw, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved myself, seconded by Councillor Hume, that the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of June 25th, 2014.
Carried.
Carried.
Inquiries. We have one written inquiry from Councillor El Shantiri.
Thank you, Your Worship, and if you can bear with me, I'd like to read my inquiry. On June 23rd, Mr. Mayor, 2014, approximately at 10 a.m., a resident of Carp contacted their ward councillor via Twitter and phone call to ask about the sudden drop in water pressure for their home. After the councillor alerted staff, he was informed that contractor had damaged a water main from the communal well to about 180 homes. The councillor was advised that staff will let him know when the problem was resolved. Approximately 12:20 p.m., staff advised the ward councillor the water was back on, and the councillor tweeted this information. And at 4:29 p.m., Ottawa Public Health issued precautionary boiled water advisory for the 180 homes on the communal well in Carp. Some 4 hours after the water main was repaired, and residents were using their water again in the normal course of the day, revealing the process between the different departments in the city, and specifically among environmental staff, emergency management, corporate communication, and public health. This boiled water advisory remained in effect till approximately at 1:20 a day after, on June 24, 2014. Residents in the ward and the ward council were deeply concerned about the delay between fixing the water break and issuing the precautionary boiled water advisory. So please provide response as soon as possible to the following question. When and how was city staff notified about the water main break for my communal well in Carp? A, when was the public health notified? B, when was emergency services notified? C, when was corporate communication notified? When was the ward councillor notified? And when was the public notification? Why was there a delay between fixing the water main and notifying the public? Does the city have a process and procedures with respect to provide a note for those concerned when a water main break in the city, and where those follow at their specific understanding with respect to a communal well? If so, where these process and procedures follow? If not, why does the city not have such a process, and when will they be developed? Why does the city not institute an immediate precautionary boiled water advisory for every water main break to protect the resident first, and then they can clear after the testing? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Just a reminder again, the YBIZ forum is on just outside council chambers. I encourage you on your way back to your office if you could stop by and visit some of our new entrepreneurs in the city. Councillor Thompson, adjournment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hume, that the proceedings of the City Council meeting of June 25th, 2014 be adjourned.
Carried. Adopté. Merci. Meeting adjourned.